Hello and welcome to this edition of the Weekly Dose, Challenge Your Perspective. This is Patrick Dare in Washington, D.C. Today I want to go somewhere else. You cannot always keep challenging the other house and not look inward. So today I want to look inward in NASA. And what I want to tackle today is about primarily on leadership. What is leadership? And how in the last few weeks can we tackle this idea of what does NASA really need and what NASA doesn't need. Now, a few things have been talked about what leadership is. One of the aspects of it is respect, as demonstrated by self-respect and respect of others, regardless of differences. Treating others with dignity, empathy, compassion, and the ability to earn the respect of others. Those are some of the qualities of leadership. Among the others are a leader has to make a difference. There has to be integrity in the leadership. There has to be authenticity with that leader. A leader must have some form of courage under any circumstance. Service is a very important part of leadership. A leader is there to serve others. And humility. A leader has to be humble because among the people that he'll be leading is a variety of statures. The small people, the powerful people within the organization. And so you have to have humility to be able to deal with all levels of the people that you hope to lead. And yes, wisdom. Wisdom comes from self-introspection. Who am I? What do I bring to the table? Can I evaluate myself and make myself dynamic enough that I'll fit into the organization that I'm trying to lead without causing turmoil, without causing ill feeling, keeping the house intact? Now that does not mean that there would not be dissension and all that. Because again, a good leader knows how to deal with that. In this tough time in Kenya, we have found ourselves in a situation where we want to throw barrages at Jubilee all the time. But today I choose that we look inside and make sense of what is happening. We have NASA that has been fighting for the democratic space, led by the People's President, Raila Amolo Odinga. And each time this man has shown Kenyan the way, each time the election has been rigged against him. And we've seen how he has humbled himself over the years. Even after saying Kibaki Tosha. Kibaki left him out to dry because Kibaki had to hand over power to the Kikuyu and to the Kalenjin. That has been our history. We know that. Now from NASA, This baby has been born, the NRM. The people of Kenya have said enough is enough. We've been here before. Each time we've been denied our rights, and we are going to have a people movement. So this is a NASA baby. They're joined to the hip. There's no way you can separate NRM from NASA. Now you may be guessing where I'm going with this, and you may be right. We cannot discount, and this is the central fight that we are having, the flagrant disobedience and the flagrant fronting of the law and the Constitution by this Jubilee government. There's no question in anybody's mind that these people need to be out because they're taking us back. They're taking us back to those dark days of Moi, of first President Kenyatta. We're seeing dictatorship crippling. It's creeping in slowly. And we've seen how, at its worst, what can happen. The police shooting people indiscriminately. Children dying, not even knowing what happened to them. They were not even involved. Children being clobbered to death by the police. The police shooting live bullets into crowds with the sole intention to kill and to intimidate. This has brought us to a point where Kenya is a police state. We cannot deny that fact. We saw after the inauguration of the people's president what happened to individuals, their passport taken away. And in 2 occasions, David D was abducted, was taken from police to police station, not knowing where he was. And this culminated into Miguna being arrested because he's the one that administered the oath to the people's president, Raila Amolo Odinga. He was arrested, taken from police station to police station, denied his rights. His house was barraged in by an army, everything broken. Denied his rights, even after the courts ordered for him to be presented to the court. The Constitution has been completely shattered by this duo, Uhuru Ruto and the Jubilee. And finally, they did the unthinkable, deported Miguna to Canada. How do you deport a Kenyan-born citizen to another country of naturalization? Now you can both see that dictatorship is really leaders who are drunk with power, and nobody has the mind to tell them to stop and think and follow the law. Now, NASA is trying to correct that. What NASA is trying to do is to bring in a government that will respect everybody, a government that will obey the law. In this case, I come to the point where NASA has to rethink who their leaders are, and especially with this new movement of the NRM. Now, whatever happened to Miguna Miguna is totally unacceptable. Whatever happened to Devin D is totally unacceptable in a democratic state. Whatever happened that the passports of Kenyans are being taken away because they're in the opposition is unacceptable for a democratic state. Recently, lawyer and Senator Orengo and Jimmy Wanjigi were denied to travel to Zimbabwe to attend the funeral of the former Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, Mr. Sangirai. Of course, later they were given back their passport and they traveled. But the reasons that were given are the very same reasons that NASA is trying to fight about dictatorship. And NASA cannot fall in that very same trap where we breed or accept a leader or leaders who seem to be dictatorial. And in this case, I'm talking about Mr. Miguna Miguna. I know Miguna Miguna. He was, I think, a year behind me in college at the University of Nairobi. I know people that have known Mr. Miguna Miguna for a long time. In Canada, his classmates, his comrades at the university. These people will tell you almost the same story about Miguna Miguna. Yes, he's boisterous and he's knowledgeable. But Miguna Miguna has a way of dismissing everybody and anybody who has any idea that is contrary to his. He has this tactic of fighting back by just burning down everything. Fact, and I'm going to quote from him. He said that, and I quote, "I said that Raila Odinga would be sworn in on the 30th of January, and that I would do it whether Raila Odinga liked it or not." And it was done. At that point, he was talking about him saying what he does, and what he does comes to fruition. Yes, that's a tenet of a leader, meaning what they say. But you must put this in context. Really? Would Miguna Miguna have forced Raila Odinga to take an oath? Now, flashback. I say that NRM was born out of NASA. So it's NASA's child, not Miguna Miguna's child. We all know, which is a fact, that Miguna Miguna had worked with Raila Amolo Odinga before. And they fell out. He wrote a book that was quite scathing. He swore in the book that he would never work again with Raila Amolo Odinga. That's a fact. Another fact that he said himself on TV was that he voted for Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, that must be questioned, and he must come forward and explain what informed that decision. I'm not questioning the fact that he voted for Uhuru Kenyatta. That was his right. Everybody's democratic right. But it is also within reason to believe that people evolve. You are here this moment, you think about things, and you change course. And yes, Miguna probably changed course again to come back to NASA after realizing that the person that he voted for is a dictator. That is allowed. But he still owes the people of NASA to explain what informed his decision to vote for Uhuru Kenyatta. And now he's back claiming to be the owner of NRM. NRM is not owned by one individual. NRM is a movement of the people. In that same interview by TRT World in Toronto, the program called The Newsmakers, Miguna totally castigated David Ndii and Norman Magaya. And he said that they're not members of the NRM. They are members of NASA. Again, I beg to differ. These two people have been there. They've met, David Ndii, as the strategist, has been there with Raila and NASA. All these functions that have happened before, everything that happens that needs strategic thinking, David Ndii and Wamagaya have been in the forefront. And now Mr. Miguna wants us to believe that these two are traitors. I laud the people's president for saying that that's not the case, for denouncing that stand. Now, this is the part that I really found to be very, very disturbing. He said, and I quote, and bear with me, it's a long quote, "You ignore Miguna at your own peril. Raila Amolo Odinga knows that. The youth in Nairobi know that. And the youth in Kenya know that. They are not going to ignore me. They listen to me. And they are not going to listen to anybody saying, ignore the person, the only person that validated Raila Amolo Odinga's victory, the only person that protected Raila Amolo Odinga from being relegated to the dustbin of history." The quote goes on to say, Miguna goes on to say, had Raila Odinga not been sworn in on January 30th, today we would be singing Raila Amolo Odinga's dirges at Raila Amolo Odinga funeral. Because of my courage, that's him saying, because of my courage, because of what I did, Raila Odinga has a lifeline politically. So there's no way anybody is going to ignore me. I will not allow it, and NRM will not allow it. I ask you to think about that for a moment. Can anybody in their rightful mind ever say that Raila Amolo Odinga has needed anybody else to survive politically? Moi did not do it, even by detaining him for over 9 years and arresting him over and over. Kibaki could not tame him. After he said Kibaki tosha and Kibaki betrayed him, Uhuru Kenyatta suddenly and Ruto have not tamed him. with all their calls of him resign and denying him his rightful compensation for being a prime minister. Does anybody think that Raila Odinga's political survival depended on Miguna? Does anybody really would take that position? Now this trend of just boistering and bravado, this is the kind of leadership that we must watch out for as NASA people. Miguna has the right, and he has been dealt badly. He has been abused by the law for being deported from his own country. But we cannot sit back and take that as part of an emotional feeling that makes us not think about what kind of leadership NRM needs. Miguna simply performed a duty. Anybody could have sworn in Raila Amolo Odinga. The people needed Raila Amolo Odinga to be sworn in, not Miguna. Now, it seems that I'm bashing Miguna, but you must take this in totality as a matter of what its leadership is. If you may remember an interview that Miguna did with Jeff Konange and the current Nairobi women's rep, Ms. Pasaris, he tore into this woman. He talked about things that you do not want to talk about the next person in public, even if it was true. That is, you must think about, if this person got leadership, what would the little man be? Recently had an interview with Vincent Makori. And after the interview, he came down on Vincent Makori. Told him how he was a little man, how he would never be interviewed by him again because Vincent was trying to trap him or make him look bad by simply asking him the same question that I'm bringing up about your past and how your behaviors are. Is that these leadership behaviors? I want to quote Mr. Ofula Buke. Nobody knows Miguna probably better than Ofula Buke. And this is what Ofula Buke said, and I'm trying to find it here. He said, Miguna's attack on Devin D and Norman Maguire, I told you Miguna's growth tactics involves pulling perceived competitors down. Dismiss that aspect of his character and support him for being on the right side of things. Devin D is more developed player between the two. He has a longer shelf life than our firebrand Miguna. I can tell you, having spoken to people who know Miguna, who have known him for a long time in Canada, that is the same story they give. A person that will burn down everybody when you disagree with him. You don't become a leader by stepping on other people's necks. You don't become a leader by banning those that have been there in the trenches before. An organization like NASA that bore the NRM, which is a people's movement, needs a person of level-minded, a person that is patient, a person that is guided by a service to the people, a person that is reasonable even to the point where they question their own self, the introspective persons. Raila Amolo Odinga knows who those people are. And we cannot start burning our house down because we need a leader who is a firebrand. Yes, Miguna has his place in the NRM. There's no denying that. But we all must step back and look at what kind of leadership is needed for this organization. Going forward, strategy is very important. And the needs of this world have been there a long time. The Magayas of this world have been there a long time. And make no mistake, nobody can write Raila Amolo Odinga's political death. Nobody can write Amolo Odinga's political survival. The swearing in on the 30th was a function in this struggle. It did not anoint one person to say that the people's president is beholden to him and his political survival was made on that day. It was not. He's been there in the trenches a long time, and he'll be there. Even in his retirement, he will be there. His legacy is unquestionable. And that is your weekly dose. It is my perspective. What's yours?